Ohio, United States, 1976. The small town of Circleville that is known for hosting an annual pumpkin show since 1903 soon became a town with a name that circulates in one of the strangest unsolved stories on the internet. No known town with a population of just over 13,000 has some of its residents receive strange letters that ranted about the horribleness of the town's people, and singled out an individual by exposing an alleged dark secret that she was supposedly hiding. The resident is Mary Gillespie, a school bus driver that had an ordinary life with an ordinary job. The bus driver was told that her home was being surveillanced by the writer, and that the writer knows everything about her personal life. This was followed by the accusation that Mary was having an affair with the superintendent of the school in the town. The first batch of letters and threats happened for a few weeks in late 1976, didn't stop for a long while until sometime in August of 1977. With an expose like this, the rumors of these letters spread like fire, but not without Mary trying to hide the letters when she first received it. After 2 weeks since the first letter was received, the author who wrote again to Mary Gillespie, "You had 2 weeks, and you done nothing. Admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, for broadcasting on CBS, posters, signs, and billboards until the truth comes out." Her husband Ron started receiving these letters intended for him not long afterwards, around the time that the rumors started to spread. Ron's letter told him that if he didn't stop the affair, it would result in his death. This is a strange threat to give to a person. Why go out of your way to warn someone that they're being cheated on, and then give them a death threat if they didn't take the action to stop it? It seems pretty counterproductive and an indication of a red flag for a different motive. More on this later, but this is something to take note of. This is an excerpt from one of the letters Ron received. "Stay away from Macy. Don't lie when questioned about knowing him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified, and everything will be over soon." There's more to the letters, but it has been incredibly difficult to track down a full letter. Many of the letters I've found are small excerpts. After Ron received the letters, Mary came clean to him about her knowledge of the letters and that she had received them a few weeks before. She said she didn't know what the author was talking about and that this was an attempt to harass them. Because the writer singled out Mary, they believed that the suspects to be someone that is close with the family, or at least friends with them. They started a list of suspects that led to the couple thinking that Ron's brother-in-law, Paul for sure, is the mystery writer of these letters. They used the same tactic as the mystery writer and wrote some anonymous letters that they knew who he was and that he had to stop sending the letters. Suddenly, the letters stopped. Life became normal again for the couple until August 19, 1977. Ron received a phone call that led him taking his gun out and telling his children that he was going to go out to confront the writer. Hours go by with no one hearing from Ron since he had left. His truck was found crashed into a tree on the intersection not far away from the house. Police investigated the crash and found that Ron's gun has been fired once. During the investigation, the police reported that Ron had a .16 alcohol level in his blood, which could have been the reason for his car crash and his death. The gunshot was seemingly never explained. The police ruled this as an accident after interviewing a suspect and cleared them. After this, more letters arrived accusing the sheriffs of covering up Ron's death, which is odd because since the writer warned Ron's with death and urged residents of Circleville to pressure a more thorough investigation. Around the same time, Mary admitted to a relationship with the superintendent, but claimed that it happened after the letters were sent. What? Well, then nothing happened for many years until 1983. Along Mary's bus route, signs targeting her were put up. She stopped her bus and took down a few signs. She noticed a string attached to a sign which was connected to a box that was inside the sign. For some reason, she took out the box back to her bus, which had children in it, and opened it. What appeared was a failed booby trap with a gun aimed at her that failed to fire. The police investigated the gun and were able to read a partially rubbed out serial number on the gun. The gun traced back to Paul for sure. Paul said the gun was his but had lost it for a long time. After for sure was taken in by the sheriff, he was told to closely copy a letter of the Circleville Writer and the writings of the sign. Based on the copies, the sheriff believed that it was evidence that Paul was the mystery writer and the one behind the attempted murder of Mary. The jury gave a guilty verdict to Paul and was then sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison for the attempted murder of Mary. He was never charged for being the writers of the threat and the death threats. Well, that's the end, right? It was Paul all along? Well, here's where the story becomes infamous. During Paul's prison time, more letters continued to follow throughout the years, attacking different individuals and eventually targeting unsolved mysteries after a segment of this case aired in 1994. During this time, the Department of Corrections in the state of Ohio had Paul under strict investigation and had cleared him of the letters when the prison was asked to investigate him. During the investigation, the letters were still being sent out. The department, especially the warden, believed Paul couldn't have been behind the letters being sent during this time. Paul maintained his innocence up until his death in 2012. Before he died, he submitted this 164-page document that claimed to be enough for his innocence and claims of corruption by the sheriff's department and the people involved who may have been the true writers of the letters. This was submitted to the FBI. The letters' last known circulation were in the late 1990s and early 2000s. There are a few things that stood out for me. The first one was Mary admitting to having an affair, but only after the letters first arrived. I don't understand how this makes sense. You received this letter accusing you of cheating on your husband with a superintendent, so you thought, no, that isn't true, unless... And you went out and started an affair with the same superintendent? Why do that? Either she's an idiot or she's lying about having an affair after the letters, but in reality she had it before and they want to give total validity. Second, many people that know Ron have stated that Ron wasn't known for heavy drinking, and his children said that he didn't seem to be drunk before he left. Well, what was the call he got? I haven't seen any reports of the police tracing that phone call that he got, especially during this time. It is a common practice for telephone companies to record call logs. I also found it strange that the children or anyone else that saw Ron leave the house with a gun with the intent of confronting the writer did nothing to stop him. As far as I know, nothing I found reported in an attempt to stop Ron. Third, after Paul was in prison under strict supervision, the letters continued to be delivered with the same handwriting and style. Many of these letters were rants against the community, the sheriff, and so forth. Paul himself also received a letter that mocked him for believing that he would be able to get out of prison. After Paul was investigated for the letters, both the Department of Correction and the warden confirmed Paul could not have been the author of those letters being sent, though it can't be completely ruled out that Paul could have been the original writer and the author of those signs. It would be great to see the original letters and a copy of Paul's handwriting, but I couldn't find it. Paul mentioned and showed evidence in his document that during the trial, the writing expert that looked at his writing and the letters admitted under oath that they could be wrong due to human error. There are some more interesting tidbits I found in Paul's massive 164-page document that he submitted to the FBI. There's a section about the facts of his case and the oddities surrounding it. He claims he was denied all forensic evidence and that the fact about the superintendent's divorce were hidden away from the media by the sheriff. Paul then gives a complete story about Mary and the superintendent was having an affair and went along their way to meet up. He also believed that Ron was murdered and provided some documents that could prove it. He also attempts to break down the entire saga of the letters and how suspicious Mary was acting throughout it. During the entire story, there are many instances of questionable actions that were done by the sheriff and the prosecution team according to Paul. For example, why is it hard to find a full letter when there's dozens of them sent out? Well, the letters were being controlled by the prosecutor of Paul's case, who was also targeted in the letters with some accusation. I honestly didn't expect for this case to be this massive, but I did find it quite interesting that Paul continued to fight for his innocence for his entire life, which, by the way, he was denied parole after 7 years due to the letters being continued sent out. This is odd because he was in prison for the attempted murder, not the letters, So why was he denied for something he technically had no proven involvement in? It wasn't until a person came out and claimed that they saw a person with sandy hair and a yellow Camaro near the scene of Mary's attempted murder. This information helped Paul receive his parole in 1994. The mystery of the yellow Camaro itself is another mysterious piece to the story. In my opinion, I don't think this was an act of one person. I also believe it was someone very close to either Gillespie or the Macy family. I do believe that this investigation was poorly mismanaged and only caused the problem to worsen. A person of interest to look at is Paul's ex-wife. Shortly before the attempted murder, Paul and his ex-wife divorced after she was caught having an affair. She most likely would have known where it could have been to gain access to it. She also testified against them and characterized it very negatively, which I'm not surprised because of the divorce. It was Paul himself who wanted to divorce her. This was Paul had to say about his ex-wife. My ex-wife is the one who told Mary Gillespie that I was the one writing the obscene and threatening letters, and Mary then told the sheriff. At this time, my ex-wife was living on Mary Gillespie's property during the divorce. Yet, she never mentioned this during the divorce about me writing the letters. Judge Rosecraft checked this out because of my children. My ex-wife lived in a trailer on Mary's property where Mary had just evicted my ex-wife's parents. Sheriff Radcliffe sent out 2 deputies to deliver the eviction notice because my ex-wife's dad had said something about Gordon Macy. Since Ron Gillespie's death, my ex-wife's dad may have gone off due to the eviction. It was later proved my ex-wife assisted and got Sheriff Radcliffe the evidence. She then told Mary I wrote the letters, yet she didn't even mention during this divorce at all. The divorce court can confirm this. During the trial, my ex-wife stayed in Sheriff Radcliffe's home. She was to testify for Roger Klein, but they did not use her because Klein feared cross-examination would blow his case. While my ex-wife did assist the sheriff in getting him evidence against me, it was clear as well. See Exhibit K as enclosed. Refer back to Exhibit H. She is the one who threatened unsolved mysteries. If Paul was indeed the writer of all of this, what were his motives for doing this at all? There's a character in here that I haven't mentioned at all, but he has been a part of the story and behind the scenes. His name is David Longberry. He was a bus driver that worked with and was obsessed with for Mary during the 1970s. A journalist named Martin Young, who is a very important figure that was following this case and wrote about it during these years, named David as the original writer of the letters. Why? Because David was a bitter man that resented Mary for denying his advances onto her. It was believed he spiraled into a revenge-seeking mentality and wrote these original letters to get back to her. Young also connected this to Paul's ex-wife, who may have been inspired by the letters as a way to set up Paul. Did Paul for sure wrote those letters and was the person that attempted to murder Mary, or was he framed? There's a lot of evidence against both sides, but this whole thing is just a giant mess of information and circumstances. Maybe it was intentional. If I was a juror in the attempted murder case and was provided with all the evidence against for sure and his long list of evidence of defense that could have made it if he wasn't denied of them, I don't think I would be able to give him a guilty verdict. The jurors in this case didn't have that. Who knows what may have happened? This is the Circleville Letter Mystery.